Barigani. Chief Tambua, elders, children, members of the community, I am deeply honored to be here tonight because this is a celebration that has real significance for our people. We call ourselves African Americans. Some of us call ourselves Black Americans. But we are Africans.
That's right.
And we have continued to be in search of all the meaning from my ancestral homeland.
All right.
And so 50 years ago, when this celebration was created by Brother Malana Karenga, it was an important moment for Black people in America because it gave us an opportunity to reconnect to something that we hadn't lost, but was purposely severed.
Good point.
See, there's a difference in being in a distant land and you still have a connection with your homeland. So if you're Italian, you can look back and you can actually trace your roots back to Italy. If you're German, you can trace your roots back to Germany.
Yeah.
But as Black people in this country, our roots were purposely severed for the purpose of destroying us. So to have a celebration, to be bold enough in 1966 to declare that we are going to create a celebration by us and for us and about us deserves a round of applause. So part of why Kwanzaa is important, and part of why, and for young people, the reason why you need to understand why the elders are important. I've had the opportunity to travel to Africa about 25 times. Ghana, Senegal, South Africa, Botswana, Swaziland, Lesotho. The one thing that you realize when you go back home is that the elders are revered. And they're revered because they possess a knowledge that only they have. And the reason why the oral tradition is important in our community is because that knowledge was always passed down. So part of what we're trying to get back to when we celebrate Kwanzaa is to recapture some of that didn't make its way over. A lot of stuff didn't make its way over the Atlantic Ocean. Language didn't make its way over. Religion and faith practices didn't make its way over. Family didn't make its way over, because one of the first things that was done was to break up families.
That's right.
So when you start hearing about dysfunction in the black family, well, you know what? It was because it was purposely done. And many of our families are still suffering from that, because we don't know who is who. It's why you can often, particularly for blacks from the South, you go down South and you talk to someone, you realize they're your cousin. It's like, I never knew that. Because we've been so separated as a people. So what we're really trying to do in Kwanzaa is sort of reverse engineer that transatlantic voyage. Like, what did we not get when we came over? Besides the obvious, which is freedom. So part of it is the love of our elders. Part of it is the thirst for learning. We are a bright and intelligent people. Chief Tambua, elders, children, members of the community, I am deeply honored to be here tonight because this is a celebration that has real significance for our people. We call ourselves African Americans. Some of us call ourselves Black Americans. But we are Africans.
That's right.
And we have continued to be in search of all the meaning from my ancestral homeland.
All right.
And so 50 years ago, when this celebration was created by Brother Malana Karenga, it was an important moment for Black people in America because it gave us an opportunity to reconnect to something that we hadn't lost, but was purposely severed.
Good point.
See, it's a difference in being in a distant land and you still have a connection with your homeland. So if you're Italian, you can look back and you can actually trace your roots back to Italy. If you're German, you can trace your roots back to Germany.
Yeah.
But as Black people in this country, our roots were purposely severed for the purpose of destroying us. So to have a celebration, to be bold enough in 1966 to declare that we are going to create a celebration by us and for us and about us deserves a round of applause. I'm not going to take a long time. My friend Reverend Clayton called me and asked me if I would come to speak, and I always like to come to Patterson because this is my community. My grandmother lived here until her passing in 1986. I have cousins here. I spent summers running around in Patterson on basketball courts with my cousins, so this is home in many ways. And whenever you're asked to come home, you answer that call.
That's right.
But I want you to think about something. This weekend, Christians around the world celebrated Christmas, as we did in the United States. In the city of Chicago, in a 24-hour period, we had 11 deaths by gun violence. We had over 50 people wounded by gun violence. Chicago's not an aberration. Baltimore, Detroit, Patterson, Newark. It's happening everywhere. So as we focus in on this first principle, we need to really have an honest discussion about unity. Because we often speak about it. We often claim to practice it. But I'm not sure we really know what it is. Because we've created this false sense of unity that serves no purpose. Understand this, unity does not mean sameness.
Right.
We're too diverse a people. Our footprint is global. There are people that look like us in all corners of the world. They don't necessarily do the same things we do, or even believe in some of the same things we inherently believe in as Americans, as African Americans, but they're part of us. So we need to understand that unity doesn't necessarily mean sameness, and we get this confused because we think that to have unity, we all have to be the same. So when you hear words like diversity, you never hear it spoken about our community. It's spoken about the Latino community. It's talking about Eastern Europeans. There is tremendous diversity in the black family in the diaspora. And when we think about our history, we cling to the issue of slavery when the fewest slaves were dropped off in North America. You have to go down to Brazil and South America. That's where the overabundance of slaves ended during the slave trade. So when we get into these silly arguments, which we often do, I'm African American, you're Dominican, you're Haitian, you're that because your folks just got dropped off someplace else.
Absolutely.
Don't get it twisted. We're all one community. So we need to begin to reconstruct what unity really is. Unity also doesn't mean unilateral agreement. Sometimes you have to disagree to become united. We were always at our strongest as a people when we were willing to challenge one another with ideas. Because you can disagree without being disagreed with.
That's right.
We benefited from the debates between W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. We benefited by the debates by Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, by Malcolm and Martin. It took nothing away from us as a people. It strengthened us. But now we've gotten into a point where we don't want to have those debates. Or if we do, it dissolves into nastiness. Like we have folks who will cling more to their church and denomination than a community, to their political party than their community, to their neighborhood than their community. When we all know that any one of us in this room can leave that door, get stopped.
Yeah.
And they ain't stopping you because of where you live, what church you go to, what school you attended. They're stopping you because of the way you look, because of your skin color. So we need to get away from this notion that we all have to agree. We can take divergent paths as long as we have an understanding of the destination. So we need to understand that sometimes it's important for us to engage in debates because it takes nothing away from us whatsoever. It strengthens us. We have to get back to that point because that's the only reason why we're all sitting here today. So if you're old enough like me, And I didn't know I was an elder until tonight. And it's a moment of pride, but it's also a little personally upsetting. But if you have enough years on you, you will remember a time when we had the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the NAACP, the Congress of Racial Equality, a Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Nation of Islam, Urban League, Black Panther Party, Deacons of Defense, oftentimes not agreeing at all, but all birthed in the notion of black liberation. What has been done to us, though, is a narrative that has given us acceptables and non-acceptables. So, Dr. King is acceptable. Black Panther Party isn't. NAACP is acceptable. Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee isn't. We need to control our narrative because that's the way we become more unified. So we can't pretend that we all think alike. We can't pretend that we all have the same perspective. What we can agree upon is that we are all products of one of the most treacherous violations of human rights in mankind. If you can agree on that, this other stuff should be easy. So part of why Kwanzaa is important, and part of why, and for young people, the reason why you need to understand why the elders are important. I've had the opportunity to travel to Africa about 25 times. Ghana, Senegal, South Africa, Botswana, Swaziland, Lesotho. The one thing that you realize when you go back home is that the elders are revered. And they're revered because they possess a knowledge that only they have. And the reason why the oral tradition is important in our community is because that knowledge was always passed down. So part of what we're trying to get back to when we celebrate Kwanzaa is to recapture some of that didn't make its way over. A lot of stuff didn't make its way over the Atlantic Ocean. Language didn't make its way over. Religion and faith practices didn't make its way over. Family didn't make its way over because one of the first things that was done was to break up families. So when you start hearing about dysfunction in the black family, well, you know what? It was because it was purposely done. And many of our families are still suffering from that because we don't know who is who. It's why you can often, particularly for blacks from the South, you go down South and you're talking to someone, you realize they're your cousin. It's like, I never knew that. Because we've been so separated as a people. So what we're really trying to do in Kwanzaa is sort of reverse engineer that transatlantic voyage. Like, what did we not get when we came over? Besides the obvious, which is freedom. So part of it is the love of our elders. Part of it is the thirst for learning. We are a bright and intelligent people.
Yes, we are.
Math, science. When you begin to talk about the great discoveries of this world, it's our fingertips. So today, we have a problem where black children aren't excelling in math and science, two subjects that's ours. How does that happen? How does that happen? It happens because we haven't reclaimed what was taken away from us. So when you start looking at the breaking up of families, when you start looking at children who seem to be so distant from elders. When I was growing up, and I know young people have heard it before, if I was in a company of elders, first of all, I couldn't even be in the room. It was like, if there was a discussion among older folks, that was not your place to be. And when I was around elders, I was like any other kid. I was mischievous, I was talking some words I shouldn't say, but when the elders entered the room, there was a manner of respect.
That's right.
I wouldn't think about saying certain things in the presence of an elder. And it didn't have to be my parents. It could be someone else, my friend's parents. It could be a stranger. So that's what we've lost, because when you go home, you still see that respect among children for their elders. The other thing we lost is our spiritual center. So we practice religion. Big difference in practicing religion and having a spiritual center.
Talk about that.
So what we have now is almost, and I won't say every church, but almost spiritual theater. Faith was important to us in our homeland because we understood the relationship between myself, the human being, and the universe. It's why we respected the environment, because we respected the earth that the Almighty put underneath us.
Yes.
We've lost that. We've absolutely lost that. And when you look at what's being done in our own community, where most of us live in communities surrounded by environmental toxins, leaded water, got a whole city where children have been poisoned, Flint, Michigan. That is completely contrary to who we are as a people, because we're connected to this earth. It's one of the beautiful things you see among the American Indian community, and why the Standing Rock protest against the oil pipeline was important, because what they were telling people was, this is sacred land, and this is our land. We have no place that we can even call ours. We just happen to be here by happenstance, because someone in your family moved to New Jersey and now you're here. But it's not like this is yours. So, full circle, when you have 11 people being killed in Chicago over turf that they don't own, but they've been put in a position to kill each other because they don't value who they are, because they have no connection to where they came from. So if you speak to those who have fired a gun, they have no understanding of the betrayal of their own culture. And I don't care who you are. If I took the 11, and they were young men responsible for the shootings in Chicago, if I took them to Cape Coast, Ghana, and brought them to a fort on the Atlantic Ocean, and brought them down into the dungeon where they used to keep slaves, and starved them until they were small enough to fit through a small portal where they were tied and shoved down a runway onto a waiting ship. If I took those 11 young men into that dungeon, they would be on their knees weeping. Because that's the tragedy of our people. When I first went, it was the most overwhelming experience I ever had in my life, because I realized that my people went through this. It wasn't a textbook, it wasn't a movie, it was the real thing, when I could look through that little portal at the Atlantic Ocean and say, my God, 3.5, 4 months, they were chained up in a ship. Some of them starving to death. Some of them taking their own lives and jumping overboard, rather get eaten by a shark than go someplace that they know is going to be horrible. That's why Kwanzaa is important. This isn't just about a celebration, and as important as the symbols are, it's not even about that. It's about who we are as a people. So when we Go forward in 2017. And I know everybody has trepidation about what's going to happen. I have none of that.
No, right.
We have survived over 400 years. We have survived some of the worst stuff imaginable. And if you think one person in an office can stop the progress of black people, you need one. So in closing, I just want to say this. Kwanzaa in Swahili is first fruits. But to bear fruit, you have to plant some seeds and do some labor. Fruit doesn't just magically appear. You have to till the soil. The reason why when you go down south and you see folks still working by hand where they could have machines is because there's something that you have to be able to till the soil right and plant those seeds. And then once you plant those seeds, you got to water them. They're not growing by themselves. So as a community, it's time to start planting some seeds. It's time to start watering those seeds. And it's time to have the patience to understand if we take care of those seeds, we're going to bear fruit. Our problem is we want everything right now. We're living in a microwave society that if you can't pop it in and bring it out within 5 minutes, it's no good. Some of this stuff takes time. This country is not even 250 years old. And I reminded someone out on the radio recently, they said, we're a nation in formation. The American Revolution is not over. We're all a part of it. And guess what? All of us in the room may never see the day when black people are liberated. But 100 years from now, we might be. That's the responsibility of Kwanzaa. To say to yourself, what I need to do is something that I may not see the fruits of my labor. Because someone did that for us. There were people on those ships. There were people on those plantations who never knew us by name. But they were fighting for us. That's what we have to do in 2017. We have to understand that that's our responsibility. That's what Kwanzaa is about. That's how you extend unity throughout the year, because you have this understanding that it's not about me singular, it's about my people. And we also have to understand that it's not about stuff. We become a people that's obsessed with stuff because someone told you that was important. Someone told you that it was okay to spend $160 for your child on a pair of sneakers. I spent $14 on a pair of colored Converse in 1973, and my mother thought I had lost my mind. And it was my money from my paper route. We need to understand that some of this stuff that we cling to is purposefully destructive.
Yes.
We have more than we realize. We have more money than we realize. If you are spending your money on junk food and liquor, when you tally that up over a year, it's amazing what you could do with that money. It's amazing what we could do with that money. The reason why we don't have strong black businesses, because we don't have people that look like us that can invest in it. So as I always tell people, don't complain about what other communities are doing when we're not holding up our end of the bargain. And my last word is institutions. We could have all the great leaders in the world, and we've seen them come and go. We've seen some grow old. We've seen some taken out by a bullet. What we have to do is build institutions So when you're building churches and schools and
right.
businesses and banks, when you're controlling your own destiny, that's when unity begins. Because it's no longer about, I have to go see someone else because I want to start a business. No, I'm going to someone in my community who values me and will invest in me to start my business. I don't have to worry about not being taught about my people in a school because I'm going into a school building that we created, that the curriculum that we designed. That's unity. So I encourage you, I implore you, that as you enter 2017, make unity real. Make it a part of your daily affirmation. Don't make it into something that is, easy to say, something that's, cool to say. Work. It requires work.
Yes.
God bless you.
Thank you.